right, hey, welcome sports fans. Charles E. Smith Jr. here, and this is the latest edition of Talkin Hockey. Of course, we are going to be talking about the Los Angeles Kings. Los Angeles Kings, their very first Stanley Cup in the 45-year history. They've finally done it. Before we get into it, though, and before I introduce my co-host, let me go ahead and thank our sponsor, thepuckshopshere.com. Discount hockey gear available online. Free shipping on all orders over $75 and the additional 10% discount when you use the promo code INSIDESPORTS upon checkout. So let's get right into this, folks. Again, this is Talkin Hockey. Charles E. Smith Jr. here, and I can't do this show alone. I've got to have my homeboy with me from somewhere deep in Eastern Canada, Hockey54.com creator, Lightning Lonnie Schwartz, who a lot of you follow on Twitter at TheSchwartz54. You can find his website, Hockey54.com. Lonnie, it's all over. We've got a brand new Stanley Cup champion. How are things, man? Talk to me.
Oh boy, what a final! What a final! There was a little bit of drama added in. You know, everybody thought the Devils might just crawl back into the depths of hell and just say, we'll wait until it freezes over and come back another day and try next year, kind of thing. But they didn't. They came back and they won 2 games. They broke the streak, which I don't think got played up enough. Like a lot of people didn't mention. Oh, and the Kings' road winning ways have come to an end. Nobody mentioned that. They set an NHL record with that road winning streak. What was it, 11 games after all was said and done?
Right.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. So the Devils, you know, put up the fort at home and did a Lord of the Rings. Thou shalt not pass. Sorry, that's the little movie geek in me. But, yeah, you know, they showed that they still had a lot of heart and were ready to compete up until Game 6, where we saw what was supposedly a penalty-killing unit out there. But
yeah.
Clearly not.
Exactly.
Clearly not.
The Kings basically put the game away on that power play, which was, you know, they got 3 goals. There was Brown getting a goal, and that was his first in 9 games, I believe. And then Carter gets the second goal. And then Trevor Lewis. How about Trevor Lewis for the first time in 17 games? He scores. So you had guys coming alive at just the right moment. You know, and that's what you talk about when you have a power play that's been kind of anemic, and a lot of things that go into just winning Stanley Cups and winning playoff series is just those little moments where, you know, something that may have not been working, but you look at the moment, you seize it, and just go after it. And that was it. Within 3 minutes, they put the game out of reach.
Yeah, capitalizing on mistakes. We said it earlier in the round. And look, we can go over this because everybody's gone over it, and it would feel wrong to not do it because, you know, earlier on, Steven Giunta gets plowed from behind by Jarrett Stoll, and no penalty call. I mean, Giunta was fine. He gets up, he turns around, he looks around, he's like, what, ref? No call on that? Who the heck did it?
Right.
And then moments later, poor Steve Bernier, who's going to be the GOAT, like at least he plays in New Jersey. If it was Toronto, the kid might have to find some place to hide in, like, Latvia for no one to find him. Bratislava. Like, pick your most obscure European block town, dig a hole, and then dig a hole in that hole, because like, the poor guy goes flat out to chase the puck, and Scuderi, the wily veteran car salesman that he is, turns his back on the play and gets plowed, gets hurt. And look, I'm not taking away from the fact that he was hurt, but I think he kind of sold that call like a used car salesman sells a lot of. You put a lot of effort into that one.
Right. Because
he gets up, he looks around, and then drops his head. It's like, dude, if you're really hurt, you're not looking around for the ref. You're face down on the ice a la Kevin Stevens. Like, and by the way, if you're missing that one, that's from like the early 90s where Kevin Stevens got plowed into the glass and was out cold before he even hit the ice.
Right, I think that was 1993 against the Islanders, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like, he got wallpapered, and then his face went flat into the ice. Like, he didn't even break his fall. And it was just, if you've got YouTube and your fingers are ready to go a clicking away after we're done talking hockey here, look up that hit. That's a sick hit. But Anyway, getting to the point is that this should have been a 3-minute power play, not a 5-minute major that took away the game, which is where I always say, when the refs say we don't want to affect the outcome of the game, that's a prime example of where they have. But the flip side of that, which, after anger subsides, because I am a man of righteousness, I think refs should call games in the playoffs the way they do during, the regular season. But after my blood was boiling and it came down to a relative temperature, ultimately, players win games, referees don't. If you can't contain a team for that long, your your penalty kill is it's abysmal, and that's what you have to look at after all is said and done.
And the other thing is, look at the final score. You look at the final score. It'd be one thing if they had lost that game, 6-3. Then you could maybe look at that call and be irate about it. But they lost the game 6-1. Bottom line is they scored 1 goal in the game. You don't win a whole lot of games scoring 1 goal.
No, I mean, they went right into the second period, and then, I turned my back, literally, for a minute, and boom. There's Dahlia saying, LA scored again. I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah.
You start off the second period by letting in another goal? It was really bad the way that unfolded for New Jersey, especially considering, as I just mentioned, how they came back and won 2 straight games in what seemed to be, against all odds because of the way LA had been playing on the road.
Right.
So really, it was disappointing to see New Jersey lose that way. But again, players win games. Your penalty kill is anemic like that, and you if they had let in 1, maybe 2, because it was a major.
Right.
You could at least carry some sort of momentum. But that third goal, everyone I think just said, game's over.
Yeah. Exactly.
Game's over.
Yeah, the first championship for the Kings. And, one thing was, and we talked about when we analyzed this, and I was, just talking about the need to just neutralize certain guys. And you look at one, Adam Enrique did get loose in one of the games there. But, after the first game, the Kings concentrated on him, shut him down. They also kept Zach Parise. Zach Parise was not too much of a factor in that whole series. The Kings outscored them 16-8 in the series. But I think they did what they needed to do. Brodeur, he played well. He and I think he did kind of steal, if you want to say, games 4 and 5 a little bit there. I think Brodeur played well, but Jonathan Quick, when you look at him and his crazy numbers, I mean, regular season, he's 1.95 and a .929 save percentage, but playoffs, 1.41 and 946. So Conn Smythe for Jonathan Quick, but just an incredible, incredible performance too.
Yeah, and look, we debated it a little bit, and quite frankly, it's hard to argue against those numbers. It's not like you said. It's not like the Conn Smythe winner ended up being. I made a joke at Dwight King's expense. It's not like, hey, Dwight King's your Conn Smythe winner, and everybody turns on and goes, what? It was a guy who was definitely deserving. Anze Kopitar had a great series and a great playoff, as did Brown for, I guess you could say, 3 1/4 rounds.
Well, you know what? Brown was a little up and down, and then he kind of, he was a beast though in Game 6 again. I just wonder, and nobody admits to anything, but with Brown and the way that he had been playing, and then when I look at it, kind of becoming a little uneven, I just wonder if he was, maybe a little bit, possibly a little bit injured or something.
Yeah, everybody's
dinged up. Yeah. So
and Kovalchuk, what happened to Ilya?
Right.
Nobody said anything about Ilya Kovalchuk. I guess the steam is all down and everything. Everything's cooled off. The run is over. We don't live in New Jersey, so we don't know what the whole press coverage is like. But Ilya Kovalchuk he was a force in all 3 rounds in one way, shape, or form. And he had 0 force Like, if he was a Jedi, he would have been kicked out. It's like, dude, I don't know what happened, but you lost it. Get out. Hand in your lightsaber, buddy. You don't need to use that anymore. Here I am using some film geekdom again. Wow, 2-in-1 show. But
yeah, well, when your Twitter handle is the Schwartz 54, I mean, and anyone thinks that you've never seen Spaceballs, I think they've got to be crazy.
Spaceballs? What's the Spaceballs you speak of? No, but I was shocked. I was really shocked that Kovalchuk disappeared, because he really proved that he wasn't just a one-dimensional guy for the whole season, and then he was a Conn Smythe contender for the first 3 rounds. Like, he was scoring clutch goals. He might have disappeared for 1 or 2 games, but hey, he was playing great, and now it's a mystery as to what happened, because like I just said, New Jersey press coverage, like, there's no nationwide press coverage on New Jersey. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then, as everyone, people follow, I was kind of on vacation when they won the Cup, watching the final game in a sports bar in Puerto Vallarta. But they had the parade there on Thursday in L.A. And one thing I like to say, and that is that, it has been speculated, I think, over the years with fans and relocated fans, and I have some fans of other teams, as to whether or not it would be, if the Kings won the Cup, would they get a parade? Is there enough support for them to justify blocking down, one of the main streets through one of the busiest cities for these guys to parade the Cup down the street? And I love the way it turned out. 250,000 strong came out to support the Kings in the parade down Figueroa, which is the main drag, a rally inside Staples Center, where everybody got to hear Jonathan Quick drop a couple of F-bombs, which no one was expecting. But just a fantastic celebration. I got to compare this too, and this is not necessarily a shot at the crosstown rival, the Anaheim Ducks, but I remember when the Ducks won the Cup in 2007, there was no parade and very little publicity. All they got really was a weenie roast in the parking lot.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I didn't even know about that until after it had happened. So, the support for the Kings, the generations of Kings fans, and, I think, Lonnie, out there in Eastern Canada, if you want to adopt a Western Conference team, I think you should go with the Los Angeles Kings, because they are set up now. This isn't a case like Chicago where you're going to have guys, dropping off the team. There was nobody who's kicked off the float at the parade route. They've got all their core players who are all 27 and under. They've got them all locked up long term. The only one who isn't locked up, we know, is Jonathan Quick, which that will be taken care of soon enough. But, Kopitar,
and the goalie
Richards,
debate, by the way, is over.
The what?
Yeah, the goalie debate in LA is over.
Yeah.
Bernier is as good a trade bait as your worm on a hook, because you're not gonna supplant one of the best goaltenders in the world. It's just not going to happen. I mean, great opportunity for Bernier, but I just wanted to say, in regards to what you were talking about in terms of the parade, good on the LA fans. I mean, with all the coverage post game, I don't think there was a riot. I didn't hear of violence and streetcars being burned to the ground, and
no, they didn't let any Laker fans come down. That's what happened. So everything stayed fairly mellow.
Good on the Kings fans, and honestly, one of the original 6 expansion, one of the original expansion teams from '67 wins again. Another angle that I don't think was played up nearly enough. Like, it's 45 years, and the St. Louis Blues came close, but they didn't. But here's the Los Angeles Kings winning the Stanley Cup, and as you pointed out, a lot of young players that are there for a long time coming. Like, good on them, but will there be a dynasty? That's the next question everybody asks us. Like, guys, there hasn't been a true dynasty since the 80s.
Well, I think they are, when I look at the Western Conference, though, and look at the Kings, and I look at where they are and look at the window in which they are playing, and that is, you look at Detroit's at the point where they're going to retool. They're kind of like in that era when they crossed over from the Yzerman-Shanahan era into the Datsuk-Zetterberg era. That kind of a window there. Vancouver has, they've got enough issues for several teams. The Sharks, are the Sharks. I don't know exactly, maybe a lack of leadership or something going on there. But then you look at the others, Nashville, you look at St. Louis, you look at Phoenix, and I think that the Kings, when it comes down to it, they are as tough as those teams, and they have more firepower. So I think for the next 5 years, for the next 5 years or so, this is a good window for the Kings to establish themselves as the elite team in the Western Conference.
Well, if there's anything that can give you a bit of a motivational boost, it's Lord Stanley visiting each and every team member's house or hometown or country for the next several months. And hey, Brian Burke, people were nailing Brian Burke all over this. We don't want to be an 8th place team coming into the Stanley Cup Finals, or the Stanley Cup playoffs, sorry. Well, look at what happened. An 8th place team knocked off. If you want to look at it in a logistical standpoint, the number 1, 2, 3, and if points were points, New Jersey was around 4th or 5th in the East, and number 8 beat all kinds of Goliaths right there. So, look, you got a great squad there. You got great firepower. And finally, because we touched on this, Anze Kopitar was the centerpiece for this organization. And now, with the likes of Doughty and Brown maturing as a captain and being that, that guy, the bangers and mash of a team like that, and showing great leadership and strong defense, just overall, you're right. You got a strong club. Here's hoping that they can maintain this streak.
Exactly. And what I like is, this is, as I say, a team getting built the right way. And, I like the way that Dino brought, he built it from the ground up, really. Just a few trades here and there to get the pieces that he need, and a lot of fans were doubting him, and a lot of fans and a lot of media, like myself, doubting Coach Darryl Sutter as well when he got here. But I really think that something that cannot be, shouldn't be downplayed is the whole thing began when they made the trade for Carter. And it wasn't really about Carter necessarily himself, but the fact that they got Mr. Square Peg, Jack Johnson, off of this team so the offense could finally run the way that it needed to. They were a different team from that day forward. They were no longer that 8th place team just hanging on. They became one of the highest scoring teams in the league from that day forward.
And they had, and look, people were questioning the Carter trade, and I said right from the get-go, I said, guys, he's with Richards again.
Right.
These guys are going to be a force, and they, again, another angle that I don't think was played up nearly enough. It's like, hey, they won, look what happened for. I think they really set out something to prove there. Once they got back together, it's like, look, we were just tossed aside. I'm Mike Richards.
Right.
I was the captain of the Philadelphia Flyers, and I was expendable? Yeah. I'm sorry, I was expendable? Are you out of your mind? And then Carter gets sent to what's purgatory in the NHL. If you want to compare a team to what used to be the Chicago Blackhawks of the 1950s and 60s,
yeah,
it's the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, absolutely. Shipped off to Siberia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the gulag.
And what happens? He goes to L.A., quick turnaround a la Chris. He was like the Chris Versteeg of last year.
Uh-huh.
Chris Versteeg got shipped off, 3 different times. And there you have it. You got Carter and Richards thumbing their nose, and Stevens too behind the bench going, yeah, we weren't fit for that little organization that has no patience for winning. None. Guess what, buddy? We're wearing a ring. You haven't done that since the 70s. There you go.
Yep.
Have
Absolutely.
a nice day.
Absolutely. And, well, that's the Flyers, though, I mean, those two cups in the 70s, but since then, 6 fruitless trips to the final, which is, that's just kind of tough. But it was good to finally see Ron Hextall, even though he wasn't lifting it as a player. But I still remember 1987, his grandiose performance when he was the Conn Smythe winner, as a rookie for the Philadelphia Flyers in that it's just a 7-game heartbreaking loss against the Oilers team where Philly was way overmatched. They were. And just had all the grit and determination, and Hextall coming up big. And it was good to see Hexy lift that Stanley Cup, too.
Oh, it was a long time coming because absolutely, Ron Hextall, one of the beauties from the 80s, the guy who reinvented playing the puck, and the, I guess, very definition of fearsome goaltender, taking it over from Batlin Billy Smith. Yeah, it's good to see Hextall in upper management getting his name.
I don't think anyone ever played the man better than Hextall did either. From the crease, He
was the lumberjack, man. Come on.
Yeah. Hey, wait a minute. I've got Kent Nielsen on line 3 here. He wants to chime in on this.
What, you want to get Chelios in on a conference call on this too?
I've got him too. All right. Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and I think we got a pretty good capper on this, the Cup. We've given the Kings their due. Let's go ahead and move on.
We did, but one thing.
Yes.
One quick thing. Before we're done. The Looney was right again. The Looney batting 1,000 for the last 2 rounds of the playoffs. The great Canadian Looney, royalty reigns. The Queen turned up 2 out of the best 3 here, and the Kings prevailed.
All right, fantastic. So, as we say, all hail those Los Angeles Kings. Did you know there's only one thing left here, and that is to go ahead and get there's the NHL Awards show, which comes up this week on Wednesday in Las Vegas. And, we got to see who was the best of the best. So, Mr. Schwartz, I believe this is your time. If you can go ahead and if you were able to give us just by category, and you and I will pick who we think will win, and then obviously they got who is going to win will be revealed.
Well, I mean, we should start with the Rooks, right? We've got New Jersey Devils center Adam Henrique, Colorado Avalanche left winger Gabriel Landeskog, and Edmonton Oilers center Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I like to call him the Nuge. Well, you like to call him Hops?
Hops, yes.
Hops. So if Nugent-Hopkins didn't get injured and miss something like 20 games, then it's a runaway. It's not even a question that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins wins.
Right.
But because Adam Henrique played virtually an entire season, I mean, he came out at the beginning missing out just after training camp, but then got called up and stuck and had a tremendous season. I got to give the Duke to Henrique because of just how well he played throughout the entire year. And it looks like Henrique is going to be the Calder winner. I think he's the consensus choice for that very reason. I mean, I'm not going to go against the grain and say, Gabriel Landeskog. Henrique played really well.
Henrique, he came on late in the season, and I think a lot of what he did was a lot of what he did was in the playoffs, though. So you could kind of, I don't know, maybe a Landeskog type of a situation there. I wouldn't be too surprised to see Landeskog pull the upset. And Nugent-Hopkins was a little bit up and down, as rookies tend to be. But I'm going to go with Landeskog on that.
All right. We're a little differing on that, but I get you. I mean, Landeskog also had a really good season and a team that's rife with talent. But again, that's a team that's kind of dangerous because there's so many people up for free agency coming up soon. But that's an entirely different story.
Yeah.
And we are not short on time because we're flexible here. But but the Lady Byng, the award that people look at and go, do you really, as a gritty hockey player, as a tough guy out there, do you really want to win this award? Yeah, I think you do, because it shows that you can play a good, hard game without getting your nose too dirty, and hurting your team. Like this, when you look at it, the Lady Byng basically says, I can play a good, hard game of hockey and not hurt my teammates. And it comes down to Brian Campbell of the Florida Panthers and Jordan Eberle of the Edmonton Oilers, and Matt Molson of the New York Islanders. And At first, a lot of people were saying Louis Eriksson should win this award because they hadn't even announced the finalists yet. It's like Louis Eriksson, this is his year. It's got to be Louis. Doesn't even get nominated. People were thinking Eberle wouldn't get nominated, and I think Jordan Eberle had all of 6 minutes in penalties this year.
Yeah.
6. Like, I'm sorry, kids. You get 6 minutes in penalties. No, 10 minutes in penalties. I'm sorry.
Okay.
10 minutes in penalties. I apologize.
Huge difference, man.
Minutes.
Huge difference.
Huge. 2 more double minors. A double minor or 2 more minors. Oh, how could I fail you? But yeah, 10 minutes in penalties, and still being a dynamic scoring player like he is, and an engine behind that Edmonton Oilers team. Then, yeah, my favorite is definitely Jordan Eberle.
All right, Jordan Eberle. And you know what? I like this because we get to divide again. I'm going Brian Campbell.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm going Brian Campbell. And he's always, to me, really, he's always played a very, a gentlemanly game. And I look at the way that he has also carried the team, being with his new team and really just elevating his game, providing the leadership as well, and keeping those gentlemanly qualities. I got to go with Brian Campbell on this one.
Yeah, Campbell, by the way, was the one with 6 minutes in penalties.
Right.
I flipped things. Terrible. Horrible. Goodness gracious.
That's why you shouldn't read that list while standing on your head, but we'll talk about that later.
Let people down. And here we go on to the Selke for the best defensive-minded forward in the league. And while Pavel Datsyuk's streak was broken last year by Kessler, there's no Kessler in his way. And you've got Bergeron from the Boston Bruins. You've got David Backes from the St. Louis Blues. You feel bad for Backes because he's in a market that virtually nobody in the United States or Canada really cares about.
Right.
I'm sorry, St. Louis.
Left?
I mean, you've got John Hamm waving the flag for you, and everybody should know how big of a man crush I have on Don Draper. But the fact remains is this is Pavel Datsyuk's world, right?
Well, and
but he did get injured for part of the season.
I think Datsyuk is going to win this. I would like to say, though, if I could write in a couple of votes, I think that both Mike Richards and Andrei Kopitar should have been finalists for this award, but the Kings were not getting any publicity. But that's a whole nother story, and I'm going to have to go with who is actually elected, and of the final 3, and I'm going to go with Pavel Datsyuk as well.
Pavel Datsyuk is the man. He missed 12 games this year, but I mean, really, Pavel Datsyuk. It's Pavel. It's got to be. This is his trophy.
All right.
Minus last year, of course. The Adams finalists comes down to Ken Hitchcock, McLean, and Torts. And, Paul McLean, everybody's going to go and say, well, Ken Hitchcock turned around the St. Louis Blues. And Tortorella led the New York Rangers to the top of the division, something people did not see coming.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my deal. Paul McLean took a team that absolutely nobody expected anything from. 0. Everybody was saying this is not going to be a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
Yet with St. Louis, the expectations were high, or higher, I should say, and yet they fell and stumbled out of the gate. Hitchcock resurrects, and they have one of the best seasons they've ever had. They competed for the President's Trophy.
Mm-hmm.
Say what you will. Fact is, I want Paul McLean to win this award. Rookie head coach, coming from the Detroit Red Wings. That mustache deserves an award all unto its own. But I just stand by the fact that nobody expected anything from this team, and yet he managed to put together a system that developed a Norris Trophy candidate in Carlson,
mm-hmm.
a top 5 scorer in Jason Spezza,
yeah,
and a playoff team that took the New York Rangers to 7 games in the opening round. Now, playoffs have no bearing, but Paul McLean should win this award. Ken Hitchcock will win this award, though.
I really tend to agree with you, and I think those are really the two. It's going to come down to them because Tortorella, you look at the talent that's on the New York Rangers, and it's like, if you could get someone in there who just said, for the love of God, will you guys just put forth 80% effort every night, and you'll probably win a lot of games. So that's where you were with the Rangers. McLean did a great job, but I think Ken Hitchcock, you look at the history of Hitchcock, and also people look at a history, reputation, him going in there, them having that turnaround. And I think it's one of those things that it just kind of builds and adds to the Ken Hitchcock legend. I agree with you, McLean probably should, but Hitchcock will. I'm going to go with you on that. I got Hitchcock as well.
Yeah. I don't like it, but that's the way it's going to be.
That's the way of the world.
And we don't vote, so we don't have a whole lot to say. Then we've got our Norris Trophy. I mean, we just talked about Erik Karlsson. Had an amazing year, all things considered. Offensively, he was the man for a defenseman. He outranked the next best defenseman offensively speaking by something like 20 points or something. Like, it was ridiculous. 78 points. 78 points. Guy had a plus 16 rating, coming off of a season where he was minus 30 last year, and played 81 games. Full season. Karlsson, cool kid, really like the guy. But I think this year, I mean, we talk about politics sometimes in an award. Last year, Weber came up just a little bit short. This year is the year of the Weber.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the finalists, we got Karlsson, we got Weber, and who was the third finalist?
Chara. We've got Chara.
Chara, yeah.
And you want to say Chara because, he's got the Norris Trophy already, and he had a good season again with Boston, but they were a little shaky. Front to back, the Predators had an outstanding year, and their captain was a huge centerpiece. 10 power play goals.
Right.
10. And he was a plus 21, one of the highest in the league this year. And I think this is the year of the Weber, because last year he came up short. He wasn't necessarily the favorite. Lidstrom ends up, taking home the gold. But I'm all about Shea this year. My boy Shea.
And you know what? Let's be perfectly honest about last year and what happened. Shea Weber should have won that last year. Nick Lidstrom, as great as he is, and he is basically my all-time favorite defenseman. He got that award last year on reputation. That should have been Shea Weber's last year, and it would be a travesty if Shea Weber doesn't get that thing this year. So I'm going to go with Shea Weber as well. The hockey gods will not allow Shea Weber to get jacked twice.
No denial for Shea. And I'll say this much, and you could talk about this more at length another day in time, but I think there needs to be a distinguishing factor here in Norris Trophy lore. Norris Trophy is for the best defenseman. And I think all too often we place a lot of emphasis on the offensive contributions of the defensemen. Like
right.
Karlsson had a great season offensively. But I think there comes a time where you have to honor Bobby Orr already. If you're going to honor a defenseman for their offensive abilities, call it the Bobby Orr Trophy already. Let's make that distinguishing trophy to honor a player who is contributing offensively as a defenseman. And I mean, come on, what other name other than Harvey would you consider than Bobby Orr? It's Bobby Orr, the greatest defenseman of all time. So that's my little beef right there. Honor the Norris Trophy winner, great defensive play, which Weber exhibited this year, contributed on the power play, which is huge. Shea Weber. Anyway, but on to the next one, right?
All right. Yes.
On to the next one. Lundqvist, King Henrik, Hank, Henry, whatever you want to call him by his first name, Henrik Lundqvist, Pekka Rinne, and Jonathan Quick. This is the only award where general managers. What's that?
Are you talking of the Vezina? Is
I
this
am
the trophy
talking
which you
about that.
speak?
Yes.
Aha, yes.
Yes, the Vezina Trophy winner this year will again be the recipient of good political favor from the general managers of the National Hockey League. Because that's who votes on this, folks. It's not the writers. This one is the only award, for some reason, the only award that general managers have a say on. And I don't care about West Coast, East Coast, Siberia, North Pole, whatever bias you want to talk about. Henrik Lundqvist has been waiting in the wings to get this award, and he's come up short before. And there's going to be a lot of years for Jonathan Quick to win it. But Henrik Lundqvist has, if you will, paid his dues and had an amazing regular season. It's Lundqvist's award. I love you, Pecorine. Pecorine is a great guy, too. He's like Jonathan Quick. You're going to be 5 years from now, you're going to be hearing Rene and Quick still in contention for this award, barring any kind of ridiculous injury.
That's true. And you know what? I look at this, and I think I look at it the same way you do. And really, you said everything I would have said about the award itself, all the way down to the winner, which I think is going to be, I would love to see Jonathan Quick take the trifecta, much like Tim Thomas did last year, and get Vezina, Conn Smythe, and the Stanley Cup. But I don't think it's going to happen, and it's one of those things where it has been building for years. I think this is Lundqvist who takes it. I think Jonathan Quick should, but Lundqvist will. Not to take anything away from Hank, obviously, because he's a great, great goaltender. But
he's King Henrik. I mean, it's one of those things. Like, look, I'll give you the skinny on it real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You had Patrick Waugh, then you had Dominic Hasek, and all the while, Martin Brodeur should have won some of those awards.
Right.
But politics was not his friend.
Uh-huh.
Finally, when Hasek was towards the end of his career, and you threw in your occasional Olaf Kolzig and Mika Kiprusoff, Martin Brodeur was reigning, and he should have more Vezinas than he does. But politics, just like it does in government, sucks in hockey just as much. Sorry, kids.
All right.
And then finally the Hart Trophy, and you could say it. You could double it up for the Ted Lindsay Award, which replaced the Lester B. Pearson.
Mm-hmm.
The Lester B. Pearson / Ted Lindsay Award is based on the NHLPA and its members voting on the most valuable player as judged by your fellow NHLers, and the Hart is voted upon by the writers, the professional writers out there. And it's the same carbon copy this year of who's nominated. You have, for the Vezina, Gino, who is not Italian.
Okay, so Hart Trophy.
Evgeny Malkin.
Yeah, exactly. Malkin?
Gino,
Evgeny
sorry.
Malkin.
I always love that he's called Gino, yet he is
like
quite
those frozen
Russian.
pizzas. Yeah. Which are god-awful, by the way.
Don't get me started on frozen pizzas.
Yeah,
I got the goods here. Little D, as you like to call her, hockey girl, Dahlia Kurtz, she makes some amazing homemade pizzas, so I'm a lucky guy that way. But we've got Henrik Lundqvist, Evgeny Malkin, or Gino, and Steve Stamkos. And you know what? When you talk about the Hart, I'm pretty confident that Malkin's going to win this. In the huge shadow that is cast by one Sidney Crosby,
mm-hmm.
even when he's not playing, Evgeny Malkin goes out there and wins the Art Ross.
Right.
And carried the Pittsburgh Penguins pretty much through a Crosby-less season. And then, Lundqvist had a great year. He'll win his Vezina. A lot of people say just because you win the Vezina or you're nominated for the Vezina, you shouldn't be anywhere near the Hart Trophy. I beg to differ. I think that a goaltender can be the most valuable player to their team.
That's like baseball has MVP and Cy Young. They don't think the Cy Young winner should be MVP because it's kind of like, no, pitchers have their award. That's the Cy Young. MVP is for, like, regular players. So it's that type of dynamic.
I don't buy into any of that.
Right.
I think you're a player. Like, I get that. I get the argument, but look, this award, the Hart Trophy, is going to go to Malkin, right? Stamkos is winning the Rocket Richard. by a mile.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wow, what an offensive season. But my dark horse for the Ted Lindsay is Stamkos. I think Stamkos has a shot being judged by his peers because the Tampa Bay Lightning were terrible this year. Terrible. And yet he still managed to shine. And I think his peers might look beyond what happened as a team and say, you know, as an individual, like, I can't cover this guy.
Mm-hmm.
He still scores. People say he still scores that one-timer goal. You know, like, how can we not take that lane away from him? It's not just one-timer goals. The guy's got great dangles.
Right.
He's got a great wrist shot, and that one-timer is, I mean, he's the apex predator out there. He is the great white shark. He is Zeus with a stick. I can't come up with enough accolades for Steve Stamkos. The guy could very well walk away with the Ted Lindsay, and Malkin will walk away with the Hart. That's my slant on the two MVPs award.
Well, I think, and I noticed that you didn't really put Lundqvist into that conversation, and I think kind of rightfully so. But I got to go with Malkin. I think a clean sweep here. When I look at the way he played in the regular season, and the way he plays when Sidney Crosby is not in the lineup, Malkin was in straight beast mode all season long. Not to take anything away from Stammer, but yeah, Malkin, I just don't see how he can not get both awards because he was just incredible. Incredible. He was unstoppable night in and night out. And I know you could say that about Stamkos with 60 goals. But, yeah, Malkin was just I think he's got both of these. He's got the Lindsay, he's got the Hart.
And it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me, but I'm just going with a little gut feeling, a little dark horse feel for Stammer. He's one of my favorite interviews, and he's a real good guy. And I mean, that aside, I think just what he did with the lack of success from his team around him,
exactly,
in a manner of speaking, is what's going to set him up for his peers saying, you know what, like, we tried defending this guy, we tried everything we could, and the rest of the team didn't come up to snuff, but Stamkos, he rose above everything, and just night in, night out was that guy. And now they've got a goaltender, by the way. If you're just tuning in and you haven't heard, Anders Lindback is now the goaltender for the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's going to change a lot of game right there for Tampa. So, anyway, just needed to footnote that because we were talking about how crappy the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Well, that was their real problem, which, you know, again, when you talk about the things you could do an entire show on, is Steve Yzerman and what he was thinking when he decided, I think we can play a whole year without a goaltender.
Or, re-sign Dwayne Rolson when he's 40 years old. I don't fault Stevie Y for a lot, but that one got my head shaking a little bit. But
how did Mike Smith do this year anyways? I just won. Okay, never mind. We won't even talk about that. We
What's
won't
that?
even
Today's
talk
show
about
is an hour and a half, kids? Okay.
All right, so let's go ahead and check out of here. And everybody, we will come back next week after the awards. We'll compare, our picks with who actually got the awards. I'll be there in Vegas, so, if you see me, give a brother a holler. I'll be doing some interviews. We'll have those up on YouTube and maybe into next week's show. So it'll be a fun time there in Vegas. We'll come back with some more insight. There would probably be, I think, Gary Bettman will address the masses. We're looking at the CBA, Board of Governors meetings, all kinds of things going on there in Vegas this week. I'll be there. I will do my best reporting job ever. Bring that to everybody next week, and Lonnie and I will break it down as only Lonnie and I can do. Correct, Mr. Schwartz? Are you down with me, homeboy, or what?
I'm always down with you, my man. I'm always down with Mr. Charles E. Smith Jr. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't down.
All right, fantastic. Now, you know what? Follow him at the Schwartz54. You can follow me at The Inside Sports. Hockey54.com. The playoffs are over. Your hockey beard contest is over. Talk to me. What are the details, man? What happened with that?
Now, I would love to say it was a smashing success, but there were fewer participants than I would have liked. If anything, I am nothing short of honest. However, there were some cool goon prize packs given away, and there's still some beards to be evaluated. But, you know, folks, I'm disappointed in you. You could have grown a beard, but you didn't. But any which way, I'm not going to yell and scream. There were still some cool winners, and they got themselves some really cool stuff from hockey54.com. So,
all right, perfect. Well, some people
that's
say
how you got it, Charles.
Some people say that the marketing campaign of hockey54.com needs to be revamped, but, you know, I'm not one of those. I'm just saying the things that I'm hearing out there in the universe, in Twitterverse, and in social, you know, I'm just saying, man, that's all. That's all.
Hey, if anything, you're always looking out for me, and I appreciate it, my man.
All right, so let's go ahead and get out of here. Again, this is Talkin Hockey, which is an Inside Sports production. I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr., so for Lonnie Schwartz, we will see you all next week, and thank you for joining us.